I'm going to call the meeting to order at 10:30. In the spirit of respect, truth, and reconciliation, we honor and thank the Indigenous people on whose traditional and unceded lands we operate. Can I have a motion to accept the agenda? So moved. Mike and Terry, thank you. And minutes of the East End meeting, February 17, 2026. A motion to accept.
So moved.
Terry? Oh, Linda? Okay,
Second.
thank you. Yeah, okay, carried. Delegations, Skill Center, Morag Executive Director, and Emily Gora. Did I pronounce that right?
That's right.
Okay.
So quick. Hello, everyone. My name is Emily Gora. I'm the Deputy Executive Director and the incoming Executive Director as of April 1st.
Hi, everyone.
And I have Maureen Carter with me.
Outgoing executive director,
Outgoing, yes.
retired. Sort of.
You know, come on.
Yeah, I know.
It's a wishful thing to think of.
So thank you for allowing us an opportunity to speak more about the request for the $30,000 from RDKB. So the report that I've sent in shows the purpose of the request, the short-term use of funds, the activities that we'll be taking on in the next few months, and then the long-term impact as well, and the budget of how we could use the funding request. What we're hoping to do is keep the organization going in some way, whether it's as we are now, hire something else. We've been delivering services in the region since 1997. We have close connections with employers, community groups, community members, and government as well. We have a history of delivering transformational programming for underserved groups, including youth, newcomers, women, survivors of trauma, and people living with low income. So the programs that we deliver in the community, both employment programs and poverty reduction programs, they promote inclusion and build community. On the other side, we're also trying to preserve the building as a community asset. Currently, 4 other nonprofits deliver services out of the building. They deliver community programs, events, host meetings for their organizations, plus other groups, unions, other nonprofits, employers. They also use the building to deliver training, deliver events, planning sessions, and host meetings. We are in discussion with another nonprofit to bring 2 of their programs to the building as well, and how it serve children and families and seniors. So accessibility, technology, and location are a draw for many of these organizations. Our building is the only one in the Kootenay region that is Rick Hansen Foundation accessibility certified. So we know that there will be employment funding released for April 1st, 2027. So this upcoming year is a procurement year. We will be writing a lot of funding proposals. Both the Ministry of Social Development and Poverty Reduction and the Ministry of Post-Secondary Education and Future Skills, they are releasing funding for April 1st, 2027. So it is a 1-year gap that we are trying to, navigate and maintain the organization and the building. So the budget that is included in the report does focus on building costs. These costs are essential for keeping the building open. So the Skills Center, other community organizations, our building partners can continue to offer the programs and services to the community. So, you know, I can keep the RDKB updated on our progress over the next few months. I'm also definitely able to continue upcoming meetings, report on progress of how things have been going and how things have been progressing.
Okay. Ally?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for bringing this extra information to us. This request came to us, I think, last fall and then again last month. As you probably know, the 30,000 was approved by us last month. I did not support it because, you know, the question is, what is the long-term plan for sustainability, which I know is your struggle, and had a chat with you earlier with federal and provincial funding being cut every day by both entities. Like, a lot of people have and will be coming here, and we have 73 services that we're allowed to tax for, and we don't have bank accounts to fund other things. So like, it's going to be a real challenge for us to fund these kind of requests. The majority of the group here did support that, so that did pass. But, you know, as far as I'm concerned, that has to be a one-timer from us. And I think you know that. It is a great service. You put together a great building, absolutely. But, you know, looking for partnerships to help pay all these bills, I think is your only way going forward, which you probably know too. But I wish you luck.
If I may clarify, we put it into the budget, but we have not approved the transfer of funds yet.
Pardon me, we have recommended that
Yes.
go in the budget.
Yeah, go in the budget, yes.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay, so that decision will be made at the next meeting, whether we're going to allocate that funds.
Questions?
All right, Andy?
Thank you for coming. Welcome to your new position coming up. All right. Welcome to your new position coming up too, whatever that may be. You'll be missed, I'm sure. Yeah, I did support the proposed contribution towards your next year. A question I've got right off the bat is, I know that property tax at City of Trail a little over $5,000. Have you applied for exemption as a nonprofit?
Yeah, so the City of Trail has given us that tax break.
So we have applied, we did apply for the tax exemption for the City of Trail. It's a 5-year tax exemption, but it is not a full tax exemption over 5 years.
Oh, is it gradual?
It's a declining.
Okay, so, but you still can go back and as a nonprofit society, as I understand, you can apply every year if you wish. And
I know that we can apply to the RDKB, but I didn't know that we could apply to the.
City of Trail is a nonprofit society owning a building?
No, for clarification, it starts with the City of Trail for tax exemption.
Yeah,
And then the regional district kicks in, then it goes to the province to finally vet it and approve it one or the other. At least that's the way it is in Fruitvale. We always have to apply first. Yes, and
Through the chair.
yeah, just jump in.
Every year, the RDKB board is required to have a permissive tax exemption bylaw.
Right.
And we only exempt those things that are actually in electoral areas.
Oh,
What? Sorry.
In electoral areas. So we don't
Right.
handle the municipalities.
Yeah.
So going back to, you know, and having a CAO and mayor in the room, I'm not looking to pin them down, but certainly I would suggest it's a conversation that we should probably pursue.
I think that's the RDKB portion of the taxes that are in the budget. We still pay them to the city, right?
So we actually pay, yes, we do pay the RDKB portion of our taxes, which was about $45,000 this year. So
It'd be good to get more information on how that works.
Yeah.
Through the chair, if you have that tax bill and we could take a look at that.
Yeah.
Because we, of course, we don't issue the tax bill. It comes from the survey of taxes from the province and it sounds,
Yeah, it's weird.
yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't,
it was a surprise to us, and it did actually make a huge difference to our budget this year. So
if you can, we can connect after and I can
yeah,
get
absolutely,
information.
that'll be great.
Yes.
As pointed out, Ali, the idea that it would be a one-time effort. And I'm pleased to hear that you're looking for partnerships. I think that's success, the long-term success is important. And I think it's an important service that's being provided by the organization taking on the role of having a building and having many tenants support its annual and ongoing expenses and operational costs. So I wish the best, and hopefully there's some opportunities that will come along, and I suggest you aggressively look for those, and the board get out there and pound on doors and see if you can't come together.
Can I just add something? One of the pieces of work that Emily and the board are going to be leading over the next month is a feasibility study that is going to be led by Doan Grant Thornton. And they have a branch of their business that specializes in looking at mergers, acquisitions, and so on. And what we have asked them to do is to look at all of our books and to look at all of the options that we have to help us map out a sustainable future. When Reese and I first started doing this work in the fall last year, we, you know, this is new to everyone. You don't know what you don't know, and we started looking at cuts in the organisation, and we started looking at and then an increased funding, and obviously then we got to the point of looking at what were the potential routes around dissolution, which is a very dramatic finish. The advice that we got, though, pointed us to Grant Thornton because there were a range of other potential options for us. And partly, although Emily's mapped out the budget for the use of this funding, but the important thing to come out of all of this is going to be what is the map forward for the organisation and for the client services over the next several years. And then out of that will come, how do we protect the asset that we have spent all of our reserves on for the building, for the community. So we'll know more about that by the end of April, hopefully to early May, and Emily will be able to report on that then.
Great.
And Terry, and then Frank and Mike, and Linda, hand it off with Linda if anybody has anything else. So Terry.
Well, thank you through the chair. Unfortunately, when you came to the City of Trail for the ask, it wasn't passed, which was a bit disappointing from my perspective. And speaking to you earlier, I'm really happy to see that you're moving forward to try and come with some other options. And that does open the door eventually if you guys want to come back to the city to reapply for grants. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for being here. As most I have a connection to the Skills Center. I used to be on the board when it first started, and then with some other work I did, the biggest thing for me in all this is that you really need to keep those programs alive for the people who need them. More than, I know the building is an asset, but that's the most important thing in my mind, because it's helping so many people recover and get back into the workforce or both. So anyways, that's where I'm coming from. I really hope you can turn this around with the help you're gonna get. And Maura, I want to say thank you very much for all the years of service. You've done a great job. And Emily, I look forward to you leading the organization.
Good. Mike?
Okay, but just clarification on the property tax. So you did apply to the City of Trail for exception?
Yeah.
And they turned you down?
No. So there is, and maybe Colin can help with this, But there is one of the opportunities that the City of Trail does to encourage people to invest in their building is a form of tax relief. And the tax relief lasts for 5 years, and it's not full exemption for the City of Trail tax relief for 5 years. It is full for the first year, and then it's a diminishing amount over the subsequent 4 years. And that is approved by the province. So the City of Trail apply to the province on our behalf to exempt the taxes. And it was actually Colin's deputy Sandy who did that for us last year.
So the total through us wouldn't be 30, it'd be like 24,000? Or
The total tax bill, I can't remember what the total tax bill was off the top of my head actually, but the taxes that we ended up paying were for the regional district portion, which, for all of the many services that Ali's pointed out that you access, and it was for 45,000.
Okay. That'd be fine.
Yeah, through the tree. Yeah, I'm a little confused by this because what happens is the city collects taxes on our behalf and then puts in a requisition. So we get our funding every August from our member municipalities. So again, we'd have to look at that. I'm guessing that when you talk about the RDKB, it's those services that are delivered by the RDKB to like the City of Trail for those regional, sub-regional or local. I see my colleague Colin shaking his head or nodding.
I can speak to it, maybe clear some things up.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
I just don't know at the table where I'm allowed to talk.
Yeah, I would ask the chair to grant him permission because he can speak to their side of it, but we don't.
Before Colin jumps in, all I know is the village of Fruitvale receives one bill, okay, from the regional district for all the services that we're a part of. Here's your bill. Give us $3 million or $10 million. That's it. How we bill it out after that is up to us. So Colin, over to you.
Thanks, Chairman. So we have this couple of different ways that a municipality can provide tax exemption. One of them can be through permissive tax exemption, and for non-for-profits, sometimes you see that for church lands. They're statutorily reserved, but say other entities can come. That's not what has happened here. The situation for this particular one is a bit different. So if you get a tax exemption under that format, of a permissive tax exemption, then that applies to all entities that tax. So if you, for example, you've got $1 million and you get a tax exemption of 500,000, then that $500,000 applies to a discount on every single tax, whether or not that's city tax, municipal tax, city tax, RDKB, school, hospital. Now, what we have is a revitalization tax exemption, which gives the increase based on what the improvements were. And that is 3 years of 100% of that value. And then it decreases down to 50 and 40 in 4 or 5 years. So what happens on that one that's different is that if you were looking at it, and just as for math's sake, it was $1 million assessed value. There was 500,000 of that was the improvement. Then what you would see is on ours, that 100% break. So then they would pay 500,000 would be their assessed value for municipal tax, but it would still be $1 million for the school tax, RDKB tax, and that sort of thing. So it doesn't have that same proportion. So this is actually full money just from the city being provided back to those that are doing this type of good work. And based on the math, that savings for the Skills Link is about $32,000 over that time frame. And this is where I think sometimes where the number of 30 is even coming in here is if you were coming to ask. So again, when they come to the city to ask, it would not only be, hey, we've already provided this tax exemption of 32-ish in that time frame, but here's another 30 kind of ask on top of that. So hopefully that clarifies sort of on that tax piece of why it's different. And they're absolutely correct as far as when the tax is coming. If you look across the line and you say, here's my assessed value times the rate for RDKB, that is for all of the services that RDKB is providing. It's not, particularly this particular service. It's that blanket number that we do to collect the funds that are required or requested from the RDKB from the city of Toronto.
Okay, Andy, Linda, I got just wait for, I want Linda to have a chance to talk. Linda,
You muted.
Hello. I'm listening to everybody here. I don't really have much to add except I supported this ask in the beginning, and I stand behind it. The work is incredible that this group does, and yeah, that's all I can say. And Mark, thank you very much for your good works all these years, and working with you has been a pleasure.
Thank you.
okay, you first, go ahead, we can go that way, sure, go ahead, Ally.
I am still confused as to the regional district portion that they would be paying. I did not follow that at all. And I'm not sure if that's school taxes or hospital, but I'm asking through the chair to Anitra. Thank you.
To the chair. So they're not paying the regional district directly.
Right,
They're paying their member municipality, the city of Trail, who's collecting taxes sort of on our behalf.
right.
So we will send out a requisition letter and then with the bill basically, and then city of Trail will pay us. So when they're seeing the RDKB on that, it's for all the services that you would be part of, like our regional solid waste service and the sewer, all those sorts of things, liquid waste. So all the different things in there. So when they give you their tax bill, the city of Trail has factored all of that in. What's the cost to the RDKB? But we don't issue you a tax notice per se. That comes through your municipality.
That's better. Thank you, Anitra.
And we can't give you an exemption for that. We can't do that. We can only give permissive tax exemptions to properties that are within our electoral areas. And it's not for services.
Yeah.
It's for the land.
Yeah.
Or the building, like a church or a nonprofit, something like that.
Andy,
Yeah, and again, going back, certainly permissive tax exemptions are granted within municipalities. So something you and your board should pursue with the City of Trail and see what options are there. There's a number of organizations in our community that wanted an annual or semi-annual. I can't remember the timing, but it's substantial amounts of money that can help save nonprofits and community organizations. Something to pursue.
hearing none, no more. Linda, do you want to close off or you got it? Okay. Okay, well,
No, just to say I didn't I didn't talk about the tax because I understood it the first time. So that's why I didn't respond to it. Thank you.
okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The decision will be made at the next meeting. Staff will review it and then it will be brought there. I think we get a feeling from the room which way it's going to go, but you never know until the vote is cast.
Thank you very much, everyone. Been great to work with you over the years. So thank you.
Thanks,
Oh,
Maura.
that's morning.
Okay, delegations done, unfinished business done. Regional District Fire Service Leadership, Dan Derby, Regional Fire Chief. Dan, you have the show.
Morning. So just back in front of you here today to talk about the deputy chief position that we talked about through the budget process. And further that with the service needs this position. I'm just going to go through it, and Donna, if you can just, I've tried to make my notes flow with the staff report. If you can just follow along, that'd be appreciated. So the new Fire Safety Act requires local authorities to implement risk-based compliance monitoring and our fire inspection process. And administrative penalties are an option that we could include. They're being used at the provincial level, but that's something we can look at locally. And regional districts, because our service spans both municipal and RD, we have a responsibility to manage those inspections and compliance monitoring there as well. Going back to the Mitchell report of 2014, this came up at the last meeting, and I've talked about it a couple of times in the last couple of months. There was 39 recommendations, 36 of which are either complete or are ongoing forever. The three that are outstanding are bylaw update that's required to be done. Anitra and I have worked on a conversion bylaw, which is one step in that process. But we're also redefining our service area, which is a second recommendation that's outstanding. And we're working with GIS and finance staff to bring a report forward later this late spring, summer, I hope. And then fire prevention staffing was brought up at that time as well. The 2019 review that the East End Services Committee initiated, it wasn't to look at station rationalization at that time, but it was to look at how we did business as a service. And ultimately that outcome was to maintain our existing makeup of stations, maintaining our existing level of service, and communicating to the community how the service that we provide. So with that historical sort of review in 2024, there was a further review done of our organizational structure that we presented through the 2025 budget process that talked about the leadership structure across fire services in the regional district for both the Boundary and Kootenay Boundary Regional Fire Rescue. Since all of this work is being done, we now have a better appreciation of the new Fire Safety Act requirements and the sort of the staff time that's going to be required to address those requirements, which ultimately lead, if you go back to that, thinking about that 2014 report that identified more prevention capacity for this service, that's still a requirement today, and it's even further lifted by the legislative requirements. Key benefits, that we've talked about and opportunities are around addressing those Act needs, looking at our paid on call retention recruitment, improve long-term capital planning and purchasing, operational efficiencies and fire service master plan that we've talked a lot about through this 2026 budget cycle. So staff are ultimately seeking to hire that position starting in July of 2026. Speak to the financial implications of this, and so the 2026 budget. So first of all, I'll back up. Sorry, the position represents about a 4.18% tax, or sorry, requisition impact based on the Kootenay Boundary Regional Fire Rescue Service that was adopted. The total requisition increase for Kootenay Boundary Regional Fire Rescue is 9.61 in the year 2026. That includes the 2% for the infrastructure levy, and it's 9.12 for 2027, and again, including an infrastructure lift there as well. If the position was approved, there would be funding that would flow from Boundary Fire Services into Kootenay Boundary Regional Fire Rescue, around $20,000 to offset some of that cost. And then if you could scroll down just a little bit more there, Donna, to the next page. Thank you. So I just want to speak operationally to how this year started. For the first 2 months of the year, we've seen a 75% increase in our call volume over the same 2 months last year. That's driven by mental health and addictions, but it's not all there. What that drives also drives a number of arson fires, fires in general, rescues. So across the spectrum of calls, we've seen increases, but the majority are in that one sector. So I think speaking to the organizational review, number 3 there. So what we've done as an organization, based on the Tim Fly's report, is Christina Lake hired third deputy chief full-time in February of 25. Big White hired a training officer full-time in January of 25. And Beaverdale, it now reports directly through the Big White Fire Chief as of the January 26th. So following that direction that was identified for us for our fire services. Currently, the fire chief for Kootenai Boundary Regional Fire Rescue has no responsibility for fire services in the boundary. We've talked lots how I get pulled into conversations there, but that's currently, there is no responsibility there. So speaking to the GM of operations, there's 35 services that report to that position. And about 10% of that position's time is allocated to RDKB fire services in the boundary region. So you can see the graph in the bottom is just kind of dividing up the sections where the GM operations spends time. There's 4 regional services, 20 boundary services, 4 East End services, and then the 7 fire services that position's ultimately responsible for. So if we scroll down just to the this org chart here is just plainly represents the structure. The one thing reviewing this in prep for today is bottom left, it shows the deputy prevention as a new position. That should have been in green, but can't think of everything when you're drafting these. But so just plainly shows what the position currently is. Opportunity is to change the reporting structure. One of the things that I should highlight is currently my salary is offset. So 15% of my salary comes from the emergency management service. 15% of my salary comes from the 911 service. And 50% of the the Fire Emergency Services Administrative Assistant, so Chelan's position, is split 50-50 EM and fire services. So staff are, we're in some areas have responsibilities in other services. You can see those allocations back to Kootenai Boundary Regional Fire Rescue to offset those work requirements. So ultimately, we are recommending, if you would like to scroll down, the hiring of a deputy chief position starting in July of 26, with a 2% increase to the requisition in 2026, and the additional 2% in 2027. And if you think about the conversations we had through the budget process, the reason we're presenting it as a mitigating an operational risk versus assuming an operational risk is we're smoothing the impact of that position. So if we fund it, if we hire the position but don't fund it in 2026, there's a 4% impact to the 2027 requisition before we even start talking about increases for 2027. You combine that with operationally, the increase in calls that we're seeing in 2026 year to date, just general concern about impacts to our operations going into the year. So again, our recommendation is based on number one, to mitigate that operational risk and hiring for July of 2026. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Do you want to go around the table once, starting with Andy, or is that you want to start first?
Sure, I can lead off here. Dan, we approved in the fall 2 new FTEs. Correct. When's the hiring of those?
They started on last Monday.
So they both positions been filled.
Yeah.
Point, and they're so we're now up to a complement of 4
on each shift.
On each shift, correct.
And those, we've been building the budget over several years to support those positions.
Go ahead, William, pass it on, Terry.
That was quick.
Yeah.
The chair, okay, I got some questions, sorry. Does the 208 that you speak of for a new DFC, Deputy Fire Chief, does that include a response vehicle?
It does not.
Okay, I got a couple more.
And I just, if I may, a little further on that, because I'm actually thinking about, like, do we need it, right? Like, I'm not sure if we need it, like, is that a change? Do I not have one anymore to make sure the deputies have one? Like, I just haven't thought through that part of the process yet.
So with the proposed leadership, well, sorry, I got a few questions if that's okay. Cut me off when you want. With the proposed leadership model changes, your salary be increased as well? I
have to ask. It hasn't been brought to my attention at this time. Right? Yeah.
Okay, with the new leadership model changes, what can we expect your time commitment be on the west side and the boundary side?
So I think that one, like that 10% piece is kind of what I see that currently is identified in the GM operations. That if you think about like a 10% workload coming in, that's what I would envision being required over there. So the way I look at this is Cooney Boundary Regional Fire Rescue needs this specific requirements. I've talked to you about that. And so we're getting 90% of that ask, if you will, by funding it this way, if that makes sense. And so I think there's efficiencies definitely that, like James in his GM operations was stretched, right? And so I think being able to be focused on fire could help that 10%, like reduce it and really what is the direction of the board as far as where they want to go with fire services, right? Like there's no change in direction, it's just really where that reporting structure is to support it. So I see being able to manage it within the 10% and things like the bylaw work that we need to do, the prevention inspection work that we need to do. It's not necessarily that it's just the regional fire chief that is going to help in the boundary, like that work would help Christine Lake, could help Big White. But we need to do the work regardless, right? And so I don't see it as something where, I'm over there for days at a time sort of thing.
One last question, sorry. Thank you. Has there ever been, and if I missed it, please deal with me after. Has there ever been a consideration for the boundary side to hire their own version of Chief Derby, like a regional chief on the west side? Because I know that might not be available to be answered around this committee. Just a question. That's I know Boundary's willing to put in $20,000 to offset the cost, but have they ever considered hiring their own version of that on that side? Chief Derby, sorry.
You're asking me?
Well, I'm putting it to you because I don't think anybody around the table would have it.
I think that's something that the staff could look into to come back to see if it's ever been discussed.
It has been discussed. So one is Tim's report didn't recommend it. East End Services Committee did ask that question in the past. And we, as staff, came back, Mark, James and I at the time came back and we didn't recommend that because like, I don't think that's where the work is. And, like, even if the boundary services did that, there's still a need for a deputy chief here, right? And so I think they're two separate conversations. I think going back many years, like when Grand Forks and different things, like I think if that was to be pursued, it would need to be at a bigger scale than just the six fire services that the RD is responsible for in the boundary. So basically the three, Christina Lake, Big White, Beaverdale, and then the three contracted services across Midway, Greenwood, and Grand Forks. I don't think there's a full-time position there at this time.
Okay, one last one, I'll shut up. And previously you've come talk to East End Services about a possible hiring of the deputy chief and 4 more firefighters. But in that one, I think it was before Christmas, we talked about hiring a captain of fire prevention. Is that still something that you're considering?
So I'm always thinking about the master plan conversations that we've had and those other firefighting positions in that captain prevention, like those are like further out, I think, and I think those would fit into a master plan conversation. this is what I think we need now, right? And then there's an opportunity with this reorg within the organization, and that's why we brought it back today, is this doesn't move. So I would see those as more medium to longer term. But right now, like, we need help in the structure of our organization to support our work, just doing regular inspections and then problem properties forward. Are we going to adopt a system of self-inspection? Like, all of those things are things that we don't have time to just submerge in that work for a period of time to get that done.
Thanks. Frank, Mike, and then I'll finish up with, oh, Alex, sorry. I was making you going first. Sorry. Alex. Thank you, Frank.
And wear a brighter top.
Yeah, I guess so. Thanks, Chair. I have a few comments and questions as well, but I'm going to lead off with Terry's second to last comment regarding a conversation that has come up back in 2024, 2025, where we did talk about the idea of the boundary looking at either a regional chief of their own, maybe based out of Grand Forks, maybe a deputy fire chief that could act in a similar role, that would manage the stuff that you're being pulled into. Also, it might take on a partial training role as well. And maybe that's a hybrid position that's created in the boundary that is an actual firefighter / deputy chief / trainer. And maybe that's something that should be considered in the boundary. I think we have a pretty good service here with our existing service. I don't think there's anything hugely broken about us. And I like saying Frank's thing all the time, and when is good enough? And what can we afford? I mean, we can't keep going up all the time. And I think we have a great service here on the East End. And I'm really reluctant to increase a budget. And I mean, we were concerned when the budget was hitting 4 million, then we were concerned when the budget was hitting 5. And now we're getting towards 6. I want to talk about the Mitchell report for a minute. There's 39 recommendations there, 36 that we've done or in the process of. Wow, I think that's incredible that we've done that much out of the Mitchell report. And we're not obligated to do them all. I mean, that's a 12-year-old report now. And I think we've done really well in moving some of those initiatives forward. And when we first saw this report come through in 2024, 2025, there were concerns expressed at that time. I still have the same concerns. I think we haven't thoroughly explored what can be done on the boundary to create something similar, as Terry and I have now spoken to. There's now communities such as the city of Courtenay that are no longer doing first responders. So I don't know how many of them are like that out there, but I know the mayor of Fruitvale has spent some time talking to the CAO of City of Courtenay and talked to them about that and some cost savings they've achieved because they're not doing first responders anymore. We talk about that just about every meeting that we're at here. And I'm concerned about having a regional fire chief that will need its own vehicle, that will probably spend a lot of time driving around from Big White out to Area A, spending a lot of time in a vehicle going around to all the services. I just think it's another extraordinary cost that I'm reluctant to look at, and I'm a little bit confused about the numbers. Would it be a 4% increase in 2028? And if so, what is that number? I know we don't have it in the report, and I see 2s and 2s and 4s, but looking past into 2028, if we were to have a full-time deputy and a full-time regional fire chief, what is that number? And I know we don't have it here, but I'd kind of like to see that number.
So what I'm saying in the report is it's a 4% requisition impact to hire the deputy chief.
Mm-hmm.
To achieve that, we could either do 2% in 26 and 2% in 27.
Right.
And then you'd have it, right? Or you could do 4% in 2027.
Right. And so my question is, if it was 4% in 2027, and along with that is a regional fire chief, what is that number and what does that impact to the East End? If we go with the deputy chief and then we hire a regional fire chief as well for everybody, so that's 2 positions, right?
No, we're not suggesting 2 positions.
Okay,
We're all, so Cooney Boundary Regional Fire.
so a deputy fire chief and your role transitions to a regional fire chief. And in 2028, what's the impact to our East End budget?
What I presented here, there's no.
I can clarify, the way I see it is, it's steady state in 2028.
It's what?
Steady state in 2028. There's no more further increases for the staff increase. The 2% is, do we want to take it yet out of this year's budget and then another
get that
2 in
part, yeah.
2027? Or do we want to say, no, we'll take on the operational risk and chance the fire department going over their budget and only do 4% in 2027?
Yeah.
And then it's steady state in 2028 because it's a part of the budget
I'm
then.
just clarifying what the increase would be in 2028, which will be 4% is what I'm hearing.
Well, not 4% on top of the 4%, then it's just steady state.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be 4% every year for the going on, other than inflationary increases for wages. That's my math.
Okay, I'm just gonna wrap up my comments for now.
Sorry, I wasn't trying to
No,
jump in.
that's okay. That's okay. I did ask the question, but just wrapping up my comments for now. You know, with all the services we're participating in and the cuts that we're talking about every day with federal and provincial, I'm reluctant to look at any more increases to this service. Thank you.
Yeah, Frank?
Okay, thank you. I want to start with the structure here. Okay, so that structure says to me that we have a regional fire chief for the RDKB, right? One fire chief for all.
That's what we're proposing.
That's what we're proposing, yes. So I know in the RDCK, they have one regional fire chief and all the communities participate in that, right? On equally shared tax base. So if we're talking about a regional fire chief and hiring a new deputy chief for the whole area, wouldn't we be talking about sharing the cost of the regional fire chief across the whole Cooney boundary? Not just $20,000 to me, I'll be frank about it, is a joke. Right? If we're doing this, if we're going to change the structure, we need to look at how and who is going to get charged for all these services. And what I see is that if you have a regional fire chief, let's say it's 50% in terms of tax, then the sheriff 50%, and the 2 deputy chiefs would be shared 50%. And until we have that answer of how we're going to tax that and where we get the money from, I don't think we can move forward. And I'm glad Grace is on this call, so she hears what I'm thinking of this. Yeah, if we have a true regional service like emergency management, it's built to the whole district.
Yeah.
Right? So when the emergency management is reporting to you, it's still built to the whole RDKB. So why wouldn't the fire service be built like that? In terms of at least the management people. It's not just 10% that comes from the deputy officer. So that's one of the key things I see in this. The other one, you know, looking at the legislative requirements, and again, we get requirements pushed on us from wherever. But my question is, how many other fire departments are actually hiring more people to fill those requirements? Or going back to the province saying, we can do this, it's going to take us 3 years, not 6 months. I mean, that's the question we need to ask ourselves. How are we going to implement this when they're downloading all kinds of stuff on us? And we've talked about this, UBCM, resolutions, all that stuff, right? And it's going to get worse because we have $11 million deficit in this province. So anyway, those are my big things. I also think about this 2019 report that says we should maintain the 6 stations, but that was did they know that we're having problems recruiting people? When you told me all across this country, we're shutting down volunteer fire service. Look at Janelle. We don't have enough people to service them. So how are we going to keep them? And if we want to reduce the taxes on taxpayers, we need to take a hard look at that whole structure and see how many is feasible to maintain. And are we getting enough volunteers? Or do we use them different? That's where I'm at.
Janine?
So thank you for those questions, and I appreciate the complexity of this and the costs associated with what's being asked. I just want to take a bit of a step back, if I may, again, new lens, new eyes on this, so bear with me. But I think I want to make sure that you folks realize that the concept that's being presented here as far as a regional fire chief is ultimately a board decision as to whether or not that occurs and what the contribution of funding would be for the boundary. That's a future discussion that our CAO, not the acting CAO, will have with the full board, depending on the decision that is made today. Because ultimately that has influences on the future duties, shall we say, of the GM of operations, which is the vacant position right now in the organization. So there's that component that future discussions can hopefully help define whether or not a decision here would actually allow a full regional fire chief across both areas to actually occur.
But the deputy fire chief decision belongs here.
Exactly. And the deputy fire chief position ultimately is specifically identified as needs for your service and your service alone. The broader concept of the use of that, of the benefit of that potential position is for future discussions. So very valid future discussions that need to happen. But I think the key thing that Dan and the group is looking for here is clear direction on the needs of this service with respect to that deputy fire chief prevention side. The other thing that I will just comment on from a legislative perspective is that, yes, I also appreciate the downloading, because I've seen it in solid waste, the downloading from various provincial and federal levels of authorities to regional districts and the potential costs of that. We don't know necessarily what those implications are going to be, whether they're fines, whether they're timelines, whether or not we see progression towards achieving those legislative requirements. But just so you're aware, we as staff have to bring to your attention if we have concerns of not being able to meet our legislative abilities, because that's our job to inform you. So that's just the other thing there. And I'll leave it at that, just to again kind of point out where we're trying to go with this. So thank you, Sharon.
And I add something to that. So supplemental to what Janine was saying. This is a life safety issue. So when you talk about downloading, when we implemented the accessibility committee, we were told that fines could be up to $250,000 for failure to comply. In this case, again, we're talking about public and life safety. So this could have serious implications for us. One of the things that we noticed in all of the town halls and I've been here for 5 years now, is that fire and emergency services are rated as the #1 service among the public. So the public really values our fire service. The other thing too is that I know some of the directors, the EA directors, have asked for implementation of fireworks bylaws. So we implemented the Christina Lakes fireworks bylaw a couple of years ago. It's my understanding that the fire services, they don't have the resources or the capacity to do that as well. So there is work that is being delayed, including the conversion bylaw. It's the last bylaw we have to convert. It should have been converted in 1990. But again, that takes a long time. We're talking about a massive bylaw. And once we convert that bylaw, we also have to do a regulatory bylaw because of changes around welfare, like call-outs. Dan could explain that more. So there are some big projects that have been delayed because of the lack of resources. But as a corporate officer, my fear is always around legislative requirements. And there's no doubt that the province does download on us, but it's the mother province. And, you know, we can advocate at UBCM, but in a case like this, we need to comply with the Fire Services Act, any regulations that come out of it as well. So as staff, as Janine said, we're here to just let you know that operationally there are risks to our public. but also legislative risks to the whole corporation. That's all I have to say.
Just one question. So part of my ignorance, but what is the conversion bylaw?
So a conversion bylaw is, at the beginning, a regional district is created by letters patent. And any powers that were granted from the province. And so they were done through supplementary letters patent. So our ability to deliver fire services is through what that supplementary letters patent. In the 1990s, the province said you need to convert to a service establishment bylaw. So now any services that are established, usually we have to go to the public or we need participant consent. That is the one big bylaw that we're still operating under supplementary letters patent. And so there is a process to go to the province and provide that and convert that.
And that's been how many years in the making?
The bylaw?
Conversion.
I think that Dan and I have been working on that for the last 3 years. Is that right?
And we've been held up, and I've spoken to you in the past about, with GIS and finance has a role in this, because to bring the conversion bylaw forward, we have to bring our new service area that we're looking to amend, the top our service areas we've discussed as a package to the province. So it's all part of, it all has to come together with multiple services, groups across the organization.
So on that note then, can I have one more question? Has the province said you need to have this done by April 1st? Or any timeline?
The bylaw itself?
The conversion?
No, they haven't.
Okay.
Mike, and then Linda, and then I'm gonna go to you, Grace, for a comment.
So right now, the regional district fire chief, which is yourself, Dan, you look after East End services. And that's it. You have really no commitments on the boundary side.
That's right.
So if it's running okay, why don't we just leave it?
If it's good enough?
Yeah.
So I'd say two things is, like, we're gonna struggle to be, like, to meet that. Like, there's a desire to do the master plan next year, and if we did a master plan today or halfway through this bylaw process, it's gonna get lost in, we need to come up to that standard before it even starts to look at the operational needs that we want to look at. There's no question in my mind that this service needs a deputy chief, right? As far as the reporting structure piece, like Janine did a good job of sort of like the KVRFR, the East End needs this position. There's an opportunity to get some funding to offset the impact by having the boundary fire services report through my role as the regional fire chief. What I would say is, respectfully to James, like, he's had 35 services reporting to him. We've at times had challenges moving stuff along because he's had 35 services reporting to him. It's a more efficient use and sort of focused conversation within fire services to look at a model like this.
The service here shouldn't be discussed here if we're gonna get a regional fire chief. And the reason is through the fleet board of directors, not just decent services.
Anita?
Yeah, through the chair. So no, the discussion has to happen here because it would be this service that would be hiring the deputy fire chief.
Deputy fire chief.
Yes. So that's what we're really here to discuss, is if the East End supports the hire of a deputy fire chief. Should that happen, then that could relate to changes in organizational structure. But we're really here to focus on the deputy fire chief conversation, which, according to Chief Dan, was recommended back in 2015, if I'm not incorrect, or 2014. So,
Linda, and then Grace.
Thank you. As we have a regional fire chief, and I'm not an expert in this, nor should I be in any operational of any service, let alone one that has the needs of this service of this magnitude. I trust and support Chief Derby to advise on what the needs are in this service. Chief Derby's demonstrated over and over an effort to ask for the needs of the fire department and do so by being fiscally responsible. I fully support moving forward on what the needs are for this service to be effective and to keep the workers healthy by not overworking and overstressing them, being pulled in too many directions or asked to work double and triple shifts. I don't agree with the downloading, as one director has pointed out. I agree with that. But we've been trying to get this this practice of downloading for how many years now, and nothing's going to change any time that I can see in the future. And we have to look to the health and efficiency of our fire service across the boundary and the Kootenay. We are one, we are not separate, we're not segregated. We should never be, we should never think that way. And therefore, I'd like to move alternative 1.
Okay, I'm gonna call a motion. I'm gonna follow the recommendation that's there, and then we can vote for or against it. If we vote against it, then we have to vote one of the options that are there. Okay. Grace, I'm sorry, yeah.
She can't vote, but
She can't vote, but you can comment, Grace, sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm only commenting. So what's interesting here is that the boundary isn't asking for a freebie, just so you know. What I see here is the Trail Regional Fire needs a deputy chief, and that's been identified for a long time. We're not talking two different positions. We're talking combining that deputy chief to be a regional fire chief to cover the boundary, which would offset it by 20,000 or whatever that decision is made at the board. To me, it's only those two things that we are discussing right now, and that regional position then would be offset rather than the regional fire people picking up the whole cost of that. That's what I got out of this so far. There's been a lot of confusion, but I got over two position, blah, blah. But I hear one position, deputy chief, changing that extra deputy chief to a regional person, which would be offset from some dollars, whatever they may be, from the boundary. So I'm a little confused as to the comments about the boundary, because we're more than happy to pay our share most of the time. And I think that we are a regional district, and I'm happy to bring this to a board for a conversation. So please know that there's some simplicity here that hasn't really happened at the table. And if you're voting against it, then you're plain and simple voting against a deputy chief, period. Whether that's offset by any cost from the boundary or not. Now, should that be voted against, then I would suggest that maybe we look at emergency management services, putting an additional person on there that we all pay for, to actually work across the whole regional district. So just my comments. Thank you. No, I don't vote here, but I'm very interested in the debate. Thanks.
Okay, so for clarification purposes, as I understand it,
We've lost audio from Trail Boardroom.
Yeah, I can't hear him either.
Nope.
okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess I'm not yelling loud enough. Okay, so what we're looking at is hiring a deputy chief prevention position, which is a brand new position funded by the Regional District East End 7. If that happens, and probably if that happens, then the regional fire chief portion would be expanded to Kootenay Boundary as Kootenay Boundary region, because the deputy CEO position is covering the fire hall positions, and that would move under the regional fire chief, thereby reducing the budget to the East End 7 of about $20,000 currently.
Yeah, I think there's still confusion here, if I might. I believe we're looking at hiring a deputy fire
Yes.
chief. And if we do that, then the board will explore transitioning
Yes.
this role
Yes.
into a fire chief. So just let's make sure we're
Yeah.
on that page right now.
Yes.
But I still have some other comments to make too before we go to a vote, if that's all right, Chair.
Okay, then we'll go around the table one more time with everybody. Okay, starting with you, Ally, and then I'll go Andy, Terry, Frank, Mike, and Linda.
Thank you, Chair. I have a draft resolution that's going to the next board meeting regarding downloads. I don't think we have been aggressive enough in pushing back to the province in saying, sure, we can do this, but you need to give us the money that goes with it. So you will see a resolution in that light at the next board meeting. We have not been aggressive enough. And I'm unclear, I guess, when we speak to the legislative abilities that we're not following. What does that mean? What is it that we're not doing or at risk of not doing? If someone could clarify that for me through the chair, what is it that we're not doing?
So, we're required to do a regular system of inspections with kind of the language that was used under the old Fire Services Act. The new Fire Safety Act specifically requires us to implement a risk-based compliance monitoring of those buildings. And the key regulations include mandatory fire inspections, adherence to the code, building safety, adherence to minimum treatment standards. So we'd also be looking at regulations for inspector authority and compliance monitoring that I talked about. And so right now we are, I would say we're stretching our legal authority under the company inspections that we're currently doing. It's like the Fire Services Act isn't even there anymore. And what we do is the duty crew that's on shift will go, they get assigned inspection annually to do on their shift, and they prioritize those inspections within the shift. There's roughly 800 inspectable properties across the East End 7 service. And under a new bylaw, we're looking at, and we don't always, as we talked about a couple months back, we don't always hit all of the inspections. And what we're looking at is where you have the opportunity to look at is a self-inspection model for like lower risk buildings that are always, historically compliant. So there's things that you look at. We're going to struggle to put all that together with just Glenn and I, our current staff.
Okay, thank you. And I guess it might be fair to assume that there's many fire departments across the province that are struggling with exactly the same things. So I don't think we're standalone there. And, to suggest that the province is going to fine all of us because they download stuff to us without giving us money, I guess I can't imagine that would actually happen because they're not giving us the resources to do what they're asking us to do. I think that might call for a revolt across the province, perhaps. I'm just concerned about, there's a couple unanswered questions here. Are we going to need an extra vehicle? There's still some unanswered questions from the group around the table. So I'm not sure if we're actually ready to make this decision because we don't have the full financial impacts here. And, if we're put to this decision today, I'm not going to support it.
Thank you. So 4 points that I'm going to quickly make. Mental health is taxing the system big time. We saw the numbers, Dan, you provided most recent report, and ongoing reports that we've had previous years. Ali's right on. We said we have to look at both the service that we're providing, but also looking at lobbying the province. Obviously, they're not willing, or at this point, able to give us the resources needed to support that. That is super part of the downloading that I think is really an issue for me. I think, if I had my magic wand tomorrow, I would wave it and say, our fire service is a fire service, and it's not a first responder service, except in exceptional cases. MDAs, obviously, there's some But as far as all these mental health issues, it's taking millions of dollars worth of resources to support right now from our service alone. I don't think we should be doing it without the support of the province. We have an increase already proposed at 9.61% on this budget this year. I'm not willing to support another 4.18% to add to this. We have a substantial new leadership proposal coming together, a new management leadership proposal that our new CAO is working on with management. I would suggest that we let that play itself out over the next 6 months to a year before we make any more changes to management. That is substantial changes to our organization. And again, as I mentioned in a previous board meeting, it is going to be up to the board to help steer that direction. And we really want to make sure that we're part of that, those conversations. Dan, you have 2 new FTEs, bringing up complement to 4 now per shift. I'm going to suggest you start delegating more to our full-time professional firefighters. There's opportunities, I'm sure. There's very experienced and seasoned people that can take on some responsibilities in our service here. Adding 100% increase in staffing to all the shifts is going to make a big difference in the amount of labor available. So I'm hoping that you could see the opportunity there. And yeah, I'm not going to be supporting the hiring of a deputy chief at this point.
Thank you, through the chair. Lots of good questions. There's a bit of confusion, I think, around the table, what needs to be clarified moving forward. Just to be basic, because we've been going around the table quite a bit here, it's a 9.61%, adding 4.18% to everybody's budget in the city of Trail is the largest payer. Fortunately, as much as this bugs me, I'm not going to support the motion.
Okay, so thank you, Ali, for what you said, because I'm totally agreeing with you, especially about pushing back. I do think, yeah, there's a new legislative requirement. Unless someone shows me that that requirement has to be done within a certain time frame, then you do it when you can. And that means, yes, and I think, yeah, the right way of doing it is look at the high priority buildings. You know which buildings are out there that are scary in terms of fire. And I can just walk down the gulch with you and get a look at them, right? So stick to the high risk ones first and then get down to the rest. And you can use your firefighter, right, for fire inspection. So this,
Yes,
so,
we do.
yeah, so spread it out over 3 or 4 years. And if the provincial government comes after us for that, then we'll deal with it then. So I will not support at this time our deputy chief. I look forward to the discussion on having a true regional fire chief and what that structure and what that means for the RDKB. Thank you.
Mike?
I'm with Ellie and everyone here. Like, I mean, what's good enough? And again, I look at going back, Dan, what you were saying about hiring a new deputy chief. Well, I think we need more information. What's this going to involve? Like, what's his job entail? Like, I mean, hiring a new position is one thing, but what's he going to do? To make a decision today, I have a hard time with it without more information.
I think actually Donna is at that key benefits and opportunities of this new capacity. Is that not right, Dan? The bulleted list there of key responsibilities? Do you see those director right on the big screen there?
No, don't go any further, Donna. No, right there.
Yeah, right in the middle of the screen there.
Okay, Linda?
Okay, there I'm unmuted. I agree that we should we shouldn't be downloaded by the province. I've said it already, but the reality is they'll continue to do so in most cases anyway. And plus, at this time when they're so deep in debt, they're not doing anything for extra funding. As Director Morrell mentioned, the cases of mental health in the community, yes, they're there, but by not adding this position that's being asked for, we're adding further mental health stress to our fire service members. And I'm not prepared to lose a fire chief or a deputy chief we currently have on what ifs and maybe we cans. I think, I put forward alternative 1 and I stand by that recommendation for those reasons of the health and safety of our current fire staff and fire members to do the work they're supposed to be doing for us. So thank you.
Okay. So there's been enough discussion there. I'll call the staff recommendation as forward as a motion by Linda Worley. Do I have a seconder? Anybody? Okay, well, I'll make the seconder to make it the vote. That the East End Services approves the hiring of Deputy Fire Chief for Coogee Valley Regional Fire and Rescue and recommends to the RDKB Board of Directors the changes to the Regional District Coogee Boundary Fire Services leadership reporting structure as outlined. Further, that the 2026-2030 Coogee Boundary Regional Fire Rescue Service 050 Service 5-year financial plan be amended to include 2% requisition increase in 2026 and further 2% increase in 2027. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, motion denied.
I'd like to be marked as opposed, please.
As forward, in favor.
Well, as opposed to what was passed.
Yeah. Okay.
Would everybody like clarification on the minutes as to who has opposed and who has approved?
So just a quick question, would you like we all opposed except for one, correct?
Bill, you supported it because you said.
Yeah, I supported it because I seconded it, just to get the vote on the.
Oh, okay, sorry.
That doesn't mean you have to support it.
Yeah.
Okay,
That doesn't mean you have to support it.
I support the concept of a regional fire chief.
Yes.
Quite honestly, I feel that Dan has done more for Boundary than we're paying attention to. I do know that every time there was a fire discussion with James and the CAO about what should be done in the Boundary, Dan was hauled into it. I don't believe that the 10% issue is a fair allocation, and I think that should be relooked. I'm looking at other volunteer fire halls that are struggling with 2 full-time, and they're looking at 3 full-time because of the downloading, and they don't have a large staff like us to work on it. They're on their own. So I think moving forward, if I was a visionary, we are going to have a Coogee Boundary Regional Fire Chief from Big White to Fruitvale. And Dan's position will become regionalized, and more there'll be 2 full-time fire chiefs managing our fire service in the 7. But that's my opinion.
I will be recorded as opposed, please.
Okay, and I support the concept. I don't,
Thanks.
yes.
2, I appreciate the conversation today, and I think it's important for me to share, that what's the work that we're working on and, the challenges that we have. So I understand the conversation, right? It's not lost on me. But Director Morrell, I'd like to go back to just your comment on the first responder for clarity. So we talked about that a couple months ago, and I tried to pull it up in my computer, but I can't get
numbers.
Yeah. So currently, there's not a big additional cost to the service because there's a time impact. Most of it is absorbed by career staff response, right? And so the overdose response is a needed need in our community. Even if we reduced like we talked about, even if we were reduced at the bottom end of our calls, like the calls that we're going to, we still have that response and that is driving this increase right now. And I don't recommend and I don't want us to open that conversation. I think we're providing the right level of first responder services for our community because those are life-saving interventions. And then the calls that I hear about in the community that we don't go to are when somebody's mom falls and we didn't go to help and they waited for an ambulance. And so I wanted to provide that background.
Yeah, I would ask though, Dan, it makes sense, but you also said that one of the reasons we've hired 2 FTEs so that we have coverage, 2 more FTEs. So that if we've got firefighters who are going to mental health calls and life-saving calls, but we don't have firefighters still in the hall to support other calls coming in at the same time potentially, or around the same time, then we have a lapse there. And that was one of your reasons for suggesting we hire 2 more FTEs to make sure we have 4 people covering all the shifts, plus holidays, plus other things that are part of running the service. So I would argue that we are spending a lot of money on first responders. And yes, if you look at those 2 full-time positions just alone, added in every shift, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars extra.
I think you were covering that with overtime, weren't you? You hiring them on anyhow?
The changes we've made, we're seeing a significant reduction in overtime because this on a bigger conversation about how we do callbacks and this sort of thing. And we don't generally do callbacks for first responder calls. Like it would be a 1 in a couple hundred that you do a callback because we're doing CPR for an extended period of time. We're literally unavailable. But generally, we've changed how we do respond to motor vehicle incidents and things in sort of the fringe areas and outside of the city of Trail. And those are making a significant impact on overtime.
Ellie?
Thanks, Chair. Through the chair to Dan, with the mayor of Fruitvale recently having this conversation with the CAO of the city of Courtenay, talking about no longer doing the first responder calls, are they not missing legislative requirements and how are they getting away with that? And are other communities saying we're not doing that anymore because we can't do it anymore? So it's not an answer I'm actually looking for, but other communities are struggling exactly the same way we are with those calls. And if Courtenay can do it, like why are they having that practice and are other communities taking that position now too? Just kind of like food for thought, that's all.
And the only thing I would say for clarity is I think you're mixing 2 conversations there. The legislative piece was about the deputy and the fire prevention work that we need to do. The first responder is a separate sort of.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Just food for thought. Thanks, Karen.
Any other open discussion items?
Other follow-up related.
No, I know. I'm just.
Yeah.
So for me, it's good to understand how things actually work. So, for example, you go on a call, mental health call, your crew goes out. So you don't pull anybody else into the fire hall when they're out there. So you're not paying overtime. That's why you're saying, right? Now, if there was a real issue, say there was a fire somewhere else, you can call on the other halls to help you out, right? So there's backup that way too. Okay, that's. And I want to say personally, this is no slight on you and what you're doing in the work. It's about, I'm trying to look here at the bigger picture of what we're going to go to down the road. And pushing back on the benchmark.
Okay. Late emergent items? None. Discussion for future agenda items? You want to update?
I sent that out with the.
Okay, yeah. Question period for the public and the media. In the public back, CAO, Mayor of Trail. No comments?
I will. I come sit up front.
Oh, yeah. By all means.
Had a good discussion. He says, Seven, I know that this is not the board table, but I just wanted to raise, because I brought it up with council on May 9th, because I did some number crunching on kind of what's coming down the pipeline from the regional district. And it is, concerning. And I understand that we all have needs. Some of the numbers that for me, I don't know if council, again, don't necessarily look at these, but in 2022, then again, I can only talk to the tax requisition that the city of Trail is involved with. I understand that may not involve all, but we do have a number of these services which we are all in, and then we have the East Side, Seventh Side. But in 2022, the total requisition for those services that we were involved with was about $13.6 million. In 2026, that's now at almost 21 million. So that is a staggering increase. Do recognize that the sewage treatment plant is a big jump in that part, but just even that being flat for 2026 and moving forward, what I did when I calculated what's happening from 2026 on to 2030, it's going from 21 million to 26 million. That's another $5 million that's being requested in taxes.
That's just for trip?
No, this is from the services that we're in. So again, sometimes this could be a bit skewed, but I'm just trying to share it. I am obviously advocating for understand is the biggest part. And even though that's going to be at the end of that requisition from 21 million to 26 million, in between there, it actually jumps up to 27 million. Because there's some things going on which I didn't see in the report for general admin that is jumping up 12% in 2027, and another 7% on top of that in 2028. Now, again, that's the general numbers. For the city of Trail, I mean, the numbers are quite alarming. And part that I guess I'm coming to say is not only is that concerning to hear about, but I would really like to hopefully have this group, and I can speak at this group, to talk to the senior leadership, at the regional, at the different municipalities that work here. I know that the finance department here has gone through a real challenging time, but they're now fully staffed. So I would hope as we get into 2027, when we get there, that there is discussion, because we want to be partners. We want to understand if you've got experts that are in these fields, we believe as teamwork, we can come together. We can help support our directors. We can help support bouncing questions off at that level where you've got a CPA talking to a CPA. Sometimes those, they don't have to be commercial, conversations that are in this space, which can be maybe uncomfortable. But I think that we can help each other work together, share with each other. That is something that hasn't really happened the whole time that I have been here. There has been some side conversations with some of the senior staff at municipalities because we don't understand. And we're also really recognizing there were some huge challenges in the finance side, but really hoping that as they get their base set and that we turn the corner here, that we can work together and really understand this, because then I can go back to my board, go back to my director and say, yeah, this is where they're coming at. Here's how we've talked about it. This makes sense. And this is what they're doing. Or here, we can talk about, here's some revenue sources, or here's some efficiency. Hey, can we do some things together? I know that this group talks about that sometimes, and you do try, but there has been a lot of transition of stuff going on. So anyway, those are just my public comments just on, I think it's a great team here. I think there's been lots of changes, but I really hope that we can work together better so that there isn't sort of this unknown sort of thing which spits out some numbers that are really scary, and I need to bring them to my board because I'm not just trying to advocate for Trail, but I am trying to say that I think we can work better together. And that's all.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Through the Chair. Great comments, scary numbers. The numbers are scary to all of us.
Yes.
We can all bring our own numbers.
Yes.
They are scary.
Yes.
I agree. And our previous CAO did try and organize CAO to CAO meetings. And whether they were bringing the mayors or not, I don't remember. He did try and do that a number of years ago. There was reluctance from one of the players, not you. And I did talk to Mark myself more than on one occasion that those connections, what you're talking about, should happen. And they're very important. See that happen, and maybe that message can be taken back through deputy CAOs and CAOs. I think it's very important, and we did try and do it, and I did talk to Mark about that, but I think it absolutely should happen.
There's been a lot of transition with the different peoples in different places.
Sorry, through the chair, I do know that some of the senior managers have spoken with other senior managers in our member municipalities in the past. And also upon request, I know our CIO and CFO have been happy to go to council meetings and speak to the budget process too. So I don't know if we need more structure around that, Colin, or just those informal sort of connections, but there is an opportunity for, that feedback obviously from our member meetings. Yeah.
Andy?
Colin, I know that, thanks for coming and thanks for the comments. I know that the CCPC upgrade is a substantial hit to all our member communities that are participating. And I'm keen to separate that, so that we have numbers that are not including that in some ways, because we don't have a choice, right? In that project, it's going ahead, we're having to pay for it. Whereas when we talk about services around the table, we talk about core services, discretionary services, and we're having challenges in looking at a number of services from the East End 7 perspective, the transportation being one that we're seeing substantial increases for, and we're questioning its viability in our communities. So that and others, I think, do certainly have value sitting down and talking about it, and to bring our professionals into conversation, I think is really important. I'm fully in agreement that we do have those conversations, and it also helps directors sitting around the table who don't have the professional acumen to be able to know just what the numbers always mean, and to have a greater transparency on that perspective from outside as well would be of value to me in helping to make decisions at the board. But certainly service questions, like we really have been talking about that for a while, about making some serious decisions around what we can actually do, what we can afford to do, and do we need to do it.
I
got Frank, then I'll go back to you.
Thank you.
So Colin, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. I think this reflects what the average taxpayer would be thinking and seeing. They wouldn't know the numbers, but then what they do know is when they open up their requisition is, okay, it's gone up 15%, whatever, right? So that, and I'm looking at that saying, how much longer do we keep doing this? When we keep increasing multiple times more than inflation, which in my mind, that's a dangerous formula, right? So our taxpayers at some point going to come back and say, what is going on?
Yeah.
The only questions I have is about why is that service increasing in cost so much? I mean, that's what they're saying. They don't have to see those numbers. They see when they have to pay the bill, right? So yeah, we should be working together and see where we can buddy up with not just municipalities, regional districts, but the other government organizations, like school districts. Like this whole thing about having 2 depots instead of expanding their depot, my mind doesn't make any sense. It's not efficient.
I have Anitra, and then I had Ally. I was going to comment, but I'll let Ally comment, and then I'll.
Through the chair. So after the completion of our town hall tour, I collected feedback from all the surveys. Additionally, the managers have been supplying their feedback. And one of the interesting things is that very few people actually had issues with the budgets themselves, which, yeah, I mean, we have a lot of talk about inflation and about rising costs, but what we've got from our electoral area visits is that a lot of the residents don't have concerns with the budgets per se. They may want expanded services, or a lot of times they will clean up our roads, which is not in our jurisdiction anyway. So it's interesting that conversation is happening at the municipal level rather than the electoral area level. So at the first board meeting in April, I'll be bringing a report on that, which will delve into that. But it is interesting that we're not really getting the data to sort of verify that there's a lot of issues with the rising budget. So just wanted to share that.
Ally?
Thank you, Chair. It was great to see both of you here today. And you probably saw the agenda, I don't know ahead of time, but I think you both witnessed a really good roundtable conversation. It wasn't, there was in-depth conversation, good questions on before we accept a tax increase, right? And, each of the municipalities, 2 people from each municipality gets our agenda about 5 days of every meeting, the person at the table and their alternate. And, I think, it's incumbent on both of those people, the person at the table and the alternate, which I think it's you, Colleen, take a good look at the agendas. And if you see something like this discussion here today, or something where there's any tax increase, grab your peeps and say, here's some clear direction from this municipality. We support this or we don't. So that there's a real comfort level for the directors at the table to bring a position forward on any tax increase that we're looking at here. Because I'm not sure if that's happening anywhere. Maybe it is, I don't know. It's because it's different for the road directors, but everybody gets the agendas. And if there's something you don't like, you better send some clear direction here. Yeah. Anyway, and on budget increases from our residents, we're in the grocery stores, we're at the hockey games, we're taking walks down the street. We do get feedback, and I do get a lot of feedback, and I'm sure the others do too, one-on-one, not at the meetings. How come our taxes are so high? So we do get the feedback. I think people are reluctant to do it at those meetings. And I know they get to write it out, but we do hear one-on-one comments from people when we're out and about. Glenn, how long are you gonna be in the grocery store? Well, if someone's going to ask me questions and talk to me, I'm going to stay there. But we do get that feedback in a different way.
Okay, I'll sort of finish off. 2 things, Colin. I want you to know that East End 7 here has tried to reduce the budgets. For example, transportation, we did a 0% requisition because we found out we don't have to buy 2 facilities. So we had money built up. So we did a 0% requisition in transportation. Economic development, which City of Trail is not a part of, we did a 0% requisition on that. And the culture and arts was a 0% requisition. Actually, it was dropped because we're drawing into our funding for that. All of these are smaller budget compared to the fire services, but I'm saying, but it wasn't. Not every service was an increase, and we don't have the flexibility that the municipality has, as you're very well clear. If we have a surplus in transport now that we don't have to buy a yard, we can't take that and put it into fire services. If we have a surplus in the culture and arts, we can't take that and put it into cemetery. And last but not least, Ally, with yours, I've been accosted now 3 times in Liberty Stores about getting taxes down and sorting things out. And I said, I've explained it to them. I said, well, you don't have to worry about it because next year I'm not running in October. And they said, oh my God, you got to stay. I said, why? And listen to you guys tell me how to keep taxes down and increase services. I hear you. Everybody wants something for nothing. I guess it's my 3rd kick of the cat. And I find that over and over again as people want the taxes reduced. We slashed our snow service because somebody said it was the Cadillac service. Well, it was, I never get emails or phone calls ever. And I got 3 phone calls, 15 emails. What are you doing? My mother-in-law can't get out of her driveway, blah, blah, blah. It's a look at the service that you asked for. We didn't ask for that. Who asked for it? You couldn't find anybody that asked for it after they bitched like hell. So we've got a problem. You've got a problem. I love the idea of your financial people of the municipalities talking with the regional district financial people of how, so there's no surprises and leveling off things.
And it's about collaboration.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be critical. I'm just saying.
No, I love that idea. Yeah.
And as Director Marino said, you get that piece of paper in your mailbox from the fax notice, it doesn't say regional district on it, right? From a City of Trail. It says City of Trail on top of it and has the whole list. So
oh yeah.
That and again, I appreciate the knock them out ears. They don't come. I have a big budget presentation. Last year we had 1 person.
Yeah.
And it was a staff member that came.
Yeah.
So, you're just sort of, you try to preach that out there, but what happens is the frontline staff get the comments, the phone calls kind of come in, grocery store conversation for us. But
and last but not least, council said they wanted to know what the regional service was providing. So I spent 30 minutes in a cow going through every service and argument and nothing on fire, nothing on transport, nothing on garbage. we spent 15 minutes on the cemetery and how much money we're getting from the regional district of Western, what we're giving them. And they went down the rabbit hole on cemeteries for 15 minutes. And I said, that's your main issue? But that's my counsel.
And if one last one, I could just say, Linda.
We have Colleen back.
Okay, Linda, you look lovely. Happy St. Patty's Day. I'm glad that you are up for it. I don't see the pint of Guinness anywhere. Maybe it's under.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I'm wearing green with black stripes, green decoration, black Guinness. Colleen?
Oh, thank you, through the chair. I just wanted to say thank everyone for, everything that you spoke about today, because when I was going over the agenda, I had a lot of questions and I needed to get some answers, and, you know, going through the minutes and that, I didn't see what I needed to see to be able to answer the questions from our taxpayers, who are the most important people that we represent. And I hate to say to them, I don't know. So when I don't have the right answer, I need to come out and get the questions. And I appreciate the work that Chief Derby is doing. The questions aren't about that. It's about delivering responsibly. And as CA said, we just want to collaborate with everybody. We want to be working together on the solutions. We all want to be a part of the answer. And I think that's what's important. Just through conversations that I've heard here today, I know that there's things happening in our community that would benefit other communities, but we don't have that opportunity to talk about it. And we did previously, we had a couple of meetings, and you'll remember, with the CAO and the mayors, and those were really good meetings. They were really good discussions, and I thought we had a lot of process from process from those meetings. So I think it would be really important to get those back again and get those so that we're all working and looking for the best opportunities here. And, you know, I just want to comment on the budget, because it doesn't matter where you go, we hear about the budget from our people in the community. But where the city of Trail hears about it is when people come in to pay their taxes. And we always have to have that conversation with them at the counter, you know, and explain why this is going that way, what's happening. So it's putting a lot of responsibility on our frontline workers as well. So it's just good to be able to have the answers for them. I really appreciate being here today. Thanks.
Anybody else from the public? Don't see anybody. No hands going up? Okay. Do we have a motion, Ken? Okay, motion to adjourn? Sandy? Frank, thank you. Gary, thank you all.
Thanks, Bill, and you trust down.
Hey,
So because we
I think turn it off. Sign it up.
Uh,